here's the situation. Delves. They started off relatively difficult at higher levels, and over the course of their lives in the War Within, I think it's fair to say they've become easier. Whether that be nerfs to the actual content or buffs to Bran. I think, most people think that's a good thing. We'll get into it. And then we've got Zekvir. Zekvir, by the way, who was compared to the Mage Tower in interviews. Not a like-for-like comparison, but, mentioned in the same breath as, right? And Zekvir, likewise, started off very, very difficult, particularly double question mark Zekvir. Zekvir? Which I found extremely challenging when the game first came out. Now, of course, much, much easier. Now, how much of that is to do with nerfs? And how much of that is to do with the fact that we've just all got loads more gear now? It's probably a bit of both. But there's no denying that the nerfs to Zekvir, particularly in the last week, but basically all through the life of the War Within, have been, substantial. And that left us in a strange situation. Because Zekvir, the one question mark Zekvir, was counted as a tier 8 delve, which meant that you could go in there, you could clear Zekvir 8 times, which, if you had any kind of item level, was a walk in the park these last couple of weeks, particularly after Bran got turned into an actual Chad healer, like alpha male stud Chad healer, dishing out his healing potions like they're sweets, and people just lapping them up like, ah, la, 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 la. Give me those healing potions all over my face. La, 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 la. Yum. So, it's an easy way to get tier 8 delves into your Great Vault. Tier 8 delves award 616 heroic track gear, which obviously can actually be upgraded a couple of times as well. So, very quickly, this became the easiest way to get guaranteed heroic gear choices in your Great Vault. And that's one thing on your main, but the thing is, the nerfs to Zekvir have been so intense that basically anyone can do it. I've been dinging 80, I've been going straight into Zekvir, and I've been clearing it 8 times. It's taken a long time, but what other way am I going to get heroic track gear on a literal 540 Fury Warrior as a solo player with an ult? There is no other way. So it's not a case of... Oh, and by the way, Zekvir right now is easier than a normal level 8 delve. That's the thing. So there's this weird thing, whereas not only is it quicker, but I would say that for the majority of classes, Zekvir is considerably easier, let alone quicker, than a level 8 delve. Now, there are disadvantages to this if you're doing it. So, for example, Zekvir will never be a bountiful delve, which means that your Bran isn't getting experience, you aren't getting undercoins, and all the rest of it, and you're not getting like bountiful loot at the end. So you really are doing it for no reward other than filling out your heroic gear track. And that was the case up until about midnight last night. Now, we put out a weekly reset yesterday where we talked about this. And I just want to play you this one part of the weekly reset because I think it might resonate.
Tally is the alt dude in this relationship, and he's been able to fairly easily beat Zekvir on everything he's tried on it so far, including a 570 Fire Mage and a 540 Fury Warrior, which makes it easily the simplest way to get heroic track gear for lower level toons, to the extent where, they're gonna change it, right? So it doesn't count as a tier 8 delve, right? I'd get in there quick.
So it's quite funny because if you go through the comments of this video, apart from saying like what a fucking Chad I am and how handsome I am and how splendid my jacket is and how everyone thinks wearing a denim shirt underneath that jacket was a brilliant idea. Like everyone's just like, that was a fantastic idea, Tally. Really, really stylish. Love what you've done there. That's amazing. Looking hot. You definitely don't need a haircut. You're definitely looking young and sexy and thin. So there are a lot of comments in here which are like, aha, this video aged like milk. By the way, that's my least favorite phrase in the whole of humanity. You know how like sometimes phrases just become, they get into the lexicon? Age like milk is one of my least favorite phrases because people overuse that shit too much. But people have gone, oh, this aged like milk in all of these comments. Clearly before they got to this bit where Evertel correctly predicts that they were going to change it. Because they were so obviously going to change it. As soon as this became a thing, as soon as the nerfs to Zekvir happened, this was always going to be changed. And lo and behold, Zekvir's lair will no longer count towards Great Vault with weekly reset. I mean, this title should really be changed to as predicted on the weekly reset. Can I just put a little note in here? That's what this title should read, but fine, whatever. So this morning, about midnight last night, Blizz has announced that Zekvir's lair will no longer count towards the Great Vault with the weekly reset. Edit, Blizzard has clarified that Zekvir runs will still count for tomorrow's Great Vault. Yeah, because it's for the reset. So with the weekly reset in each region, I don't think they needed to clarify that. I think it's pretty clear in the original message, but there we go. We're making the following adjustments to the Great Vault's unlocks from Delves. Zekvir's lair no longer awards Great Vault credit. Should we go and have a look at the comments on this? I was expecting it, to be honest. Fun detected. Seems reasonable. Shills. People weren't doing it for, well, that sucks. I hate Delves. I only do them for the Great Vault. Why? I will not be renewing my sub. Now, this is like the perfect WoW comment, if you ask me, because it like answers its own question. And here's the thing, because is it really sucky that they're changing this? Yes. But is the fact that they're changing it the real problem here? No. Okay? And I will go in depth into this because I think that there is an issue with Delves that we almost talked about last week, but I got distracted. There's an issue with Delves where they are bringing back a fundamental design fault that was present throughout BFA and Shadowlands and which Dragonflight got rid of. And they have brought it back. And this is the problem with Delves. Everything else is just a symptom of that, okay? And we're going to get into like the proper problem with Delves right now. But this comment is like, great, I hate Delves. I only do them for the Great Vault. That's why they changed it. I will not be renewing my sub because now there's no reason for me to do the thing I hate. So does it suck that Zekvir doesn't award like level 8 gear? Yes, it does, because we've gotten used to it. So as a change, fundamentally, it feels bad. Objectively, it feels bad, okay? But it's not the real problem, okay? There are two big problems. The lesser problem is that Delves should not award heroic track gear. The lesser problem with Delves is that they should not award heroic track gear. 616 gear they award. What they should award is top level champion gear. They should reward fully leveled up champion gear, which is only a few item levels lower, but cannot be upgraded more. And the reason that they should not... Yeah, does it feel brilliant that I can get heroic gear for alts that are 540 item level when I ding them? Yes, it feels brilliant that I have an option to get 540, like to get level 616 gear, heroic track gear for a newly dinged 540. That feels really, really good. Should I be able to do that? Probably not. And I think that is the lesser of the two problems. But even that is only a symptom of the real problem. And let me explain to you why this is a problem, okay? And it was always going to be a problem. And we talked about this. You can go back on this channel, the second channel, and find us talking about how this was obviously going to be a problem with Delves. And it has turned out that way. And now they're solving it with little changes that are just going to upset people. Even if they are the correct change. And you know what? I think this change with Zekvir, I don't like it, but I think it's correct. Does that make sense? Like, is it fun to kill Zekvir 8 times in a row just to fill up your Great Vault? Not really, no. But then, is it fun to do 8 delves just to fill up your Great Vault? No. And hereby is the problem, okay? And I'll explain it to you. So the whole goal of modern WoW is to have a load of different styles of content that you can do. And a huge variety of different content that you can do. And it's like, what do I want to play? How do I want to play this game? Do I want to play it solo? Do I want to play it in groups? Do I want to raid? Do I want to do shorter, smaller group instant content? Do I want to do battlegrounds? And that has been the goal of modern WoW, to give you as many different ways to play as possible. However, there are 2 different styles of different ways to play, and there are 2 different types of WoW endgame content in this world of varied content that we live in, which I'm going to refer to as shopping list content and buffet content. Now, let me explain these terms to you. I think it's fair to say that in BFA and in Shadowlands, we had a lot of what you could describe as shopping list content. Loads and loads of different types of content, but you felt like you had to do all of it. So it wasn't like stuff you could choose from. It was a list of stuff you had to tick off. And in that situation, the more content there is, and the more different styles of content there is, the less fun it is, because you're not picking and choosing. It's just more stuff that you have to do. And we moved over to buffet style content in Dragonflight, which was very much more, I really can just pick and choose the types of content that I want to do. And I do feel like there's types of content I don't feel bad just not bothering with if I don't want to do it. Now, what is the main difference between shopping list content and buffet content? Unfortunately, the main difference, the thing that decides whether something is going to be shopping list content or buffet content, is the reward. They didn't really change the style of content in Dragonflight. They changed the rewards. Okay? Let's have a look at some of our shopping list content. In BFA, we had islands. We had war fronts. Anything else? We had, in Shadowlands, Torghast. In the first half of Shadowlands, Torghast. In the second half of Shadowlands, Torghast was buffet content. Let's even clarify that. First half. Oh my god, Visions. Yeah, good shout. Good shout. Visions. And let's look at some of the buffet content we've had over the years. Mage Tower. Torghast, second half of the expansion. I don't know why you're trying to harm solo players. I'm not trying to harm solo players. Mage Master, you just told me, or people making your argument just told me, that you couldn't upgrade the heroic track gear beyond 616 because you're not doing the content where you could get the crests to upgrade it, right? So why are you against getting 619 content instead of gear that's going to be stuck at 616 for you? Why is that hurting solo players? Genuine question. If the argument is that, well, people who are getting all their gear from delves can't upgrade beyond 616 anyway, then what's the problem with giving them 619 gear instead? Why not give solo players the chance to get crests, add crests, in my opinion? I mean, yeah, sure, man. Like, but the thing is, okay, here we go. So one sec. Second half X-Pack. The problem is that with group content, you can make it as hard as you want. If you put something as solo content, people get angry if you make it hard. Okay? And this is why delves were never going to be a good way of giving heroic gear, because delves were never going to be allowed to be hard enough to deserve heroic level gear. If they changed Zekvir to not award tier 8 2 weeks ago when delves were really hard, no one would have complained. Because most people were like, well, that's too hard for me anyway, who give a shit? But because they only did it after they made Zekvir very easy so that everyone could do it, now you've got people angry. And that's the problem. Solo content is never going to be allowed to be hard enough to award heroic level gear. The community won't allow it to be hard enough. So all you're going to do is you're going to create this way, which is just the most obvious, easiest way for anyone to get some of the best gear in the game. And at that point, you are forcing everyone to do it. Because you are. Everyone needs heroic level gear. I'm sorry, at the moment. It also has a knock-on effect, by the way, where it makes... it's the reason Mythic Plus is much harder this season, and people don't like that either. But whatever. No one's trying to hurt solo players. You know? And the fact is, these complaints wouldn't be happening if Delves was still as difficult as they launched as. But you saw how angry people got. You saw how much people didn't like it. You saw how much people didn't like it when Delves were as hard as they should have been. I mean, they were still too easy, really, to award heroic level gear, but at least they were more appropriate. It's like, it's tough. And here's the thing. I'm not saying there's an easy answer. I'm just describing the problem here. Okay? One of the problems is that there is no easy answer, and Blizz were always going to get themselves in an impossible situation with Delves. Just like we fucking predicted before the expansion. Just like we predicted with Augmentation Evoker, and how it was either going to have to be mandatory or dog shit, and everyone in my chat said, no, Tally, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, and here we are. Likewise with Delves. It's like you're just putting yourself in an impossible situation. And that's exactly what has happened. You know? I absolutely did predict this because it was easy to predict. Okay? And like, there is no easy fix to it. The only fix would have been not to have it there in the first place. The only fix would have been to just go, we probably shouldn't award heroic track gear for this, right? Even create like a completely different track gear. Create a type of gear maybe in between champion and heroic, specifically for Delves. So I mean, whatever, man. Anyway, Torghast was buffet content, and then basically everything in Dragonflight: feasts, siege, time fucking things, etc. And the only difference between these types of content is the rewards. And I felt like we all agreed on this before this expansion as well. And I thought we all agreed that it was good that we'd moved on from this. Islands would have been good content, but you had to do them every week, 3 of them, or you weren't doing it right. Warfronts could have been good content, but you had to do them. So that it wasn't like a nice smorgasbord that you could draw from and play the way you wanted. The more different types of play that they introduced was just more things that you had to do. Torghast at the beginning of Shadowlands, you had to do that shit to get your limited fucking legendary currency, to build your legendary. You had to do it. There was no choice in it. It was mandatory content. Visions, mandatory content. The only difference, it's not like Islands are inferior content to Torghast or Mage Tower, certainly not to Feasts or Siege. Like, Islands, almost objectively better content than the fucking Tuskar Feast. Almost objectively better content than Siege on fucking, like, what's it called? In Dragonflight. Better content. But we hate them because we had to do them. I disagree that Feast, Siege, etc. are buffet. They are shopping lists. You did them once for the weekly. Yeah, but why did you do them? I can tell you why I did Islands. I did it for, like, the fucking Azerite, like, bundle. I can tell you why I did Warfronts. I did it for, like, the equivalent of my heroic track gear. I can tell you why I did Torghast. I did it because of the legendary currency is the only place I could get it from. I can tell you why I did Visions. It's because, like, you fucking had to level the cloak. Why did I do Feasts? Some rep. Not important. You weren't forced into it because the rewards weren't important. And that's what I mean. The rewards is the only fucking difference. It's the only thing that makes something buffet content or shopping list content. Only the rewards. So now we've gone from learning that this is the type of repeatable, like max level content that we like and that we approve of. And we created a new type of play called Delves. And we decided to put it here. And the reason it's shopping list content instead of buffet content is because you can get 3 extra slots of heroic track gear. I didn't do islands, I didn't do visions, I didn't do Torghast. You keep saying you feel forced. Not everyone feels that way. Do you know what you sound like right now, Titans? You sound like someone who, when a doctor says that smoking is bad for you, you sound like the cunt who's like, well, my granddad smoked all his life and he had never had any problems at all and lived to 101. It's like, brilliant. You're an outlier. Well done. Do you want a fucking medal? Do you want a fucking blowjob? Congratulations. You are not representative of the rest of the player base. Well done. What the fuck do you want? Do you want a fucking statue? Couldn't you argue that Raid and Mythic Plus is shopping list content too? Yes, but here's the very, very important difference, right? You're right. Raid and Mythic Plus is also shopping list content. But what's the difference between Raid, Mythic Plus, and these things? What's the difference? The difference is this shit is hard. This shit is not. No one expects you to go and clear Mythic Raid every week. When the patch has just started, no one expects you to go and clear Mythic Heroic Raid every week. Hard in like speech marks. And yeah, the other thing about these is that this is group content as well. So here's the thing, right? This is why Delves weren't a problem at the beginning of the season, is because they were hard. And at that point, you're like, well, it's not worth my time. Like, so yeah, the difference between Raid and Mythic Plus being shopping lists is it's not a shopping list that it's reasonable to complete at the beginning of a season. You know, like, it's called Raid Progress for a reason. No one's going in doing, well, I mean, some people are, but again, let's be representative here. The majority of the player base isn't going in and doing high-level Mythic Plus keys from the first week. However, everyone was expecting to go in doing level 8 Bountiful Delves in the first week they were available. Everyone was expected to go and do their 3 island expeditions from the second they were available. Everyone was expected to go in and do Warfronts from the second they were available. Everyone had to go into Torghast in week 1 of Shadowlands to get their legendary currency. Everyone was doing Visions in the first week. That's the difference. So this content is also shopping list content, but it doesn't hit as hard because it's not a shopping... It's less of a shopping list and more of a wish list. Does that make sense? Raid and Mythic Plus content kind of is a shopping list, but it's more of a wish list than a shopping list. Do you think that's fair? So it doesn't hit as hard as real shopping list content because, you know, it's the reason you're doing the shopping list content is so that you can have a crack at this stuff. You know? You're doing this shopping list content so that you can do this. And the difference was, in Dragonflight, you didn't have to do any of this stuff so that you could do this. But in War Within, you have to do this so that you can do this. And that's the issue. And what's the fix? Don't have it in the first place. That is the only fix. But that does give us a problem when it comes to Delves, because Delves is supposed to be solo content you can reasonably gear up with in a solo character. And look, I agree. It feels really, really good. This is not me defending Blizz by any point, right? I'm not defending any decision that Blizz has made here. Least of all, Delves in the first place, but not the decisions they're making right now either. Even though I think it probably, on balance, is the best thing with Zekvir in his current state, not to have him rewarding tier 8 gear slots. Even though I think that's probably for the best, I don't think it's a good decision, and I don't think it's a good thing to do. And I'm not praising Blizzard for it, to be very clear. Because does it feel really, really good to have these 3 gear slots on not just my main, where it's like taking my gear slots from 6 to 9. Thank you very fucking much indeed. But on my alts, you can go to any of my max level alts here, and these 3 slots are the only slots they have filled out. And they're going to get 3 choices of heroic track gear. The equivalent of Mythic +7. Now you answer me this. Zekvir and tier 8 delves, solo or not, are they easier to do than a Mythic +7? Yeah, of course they are. And they should be. So the problem here isn't the fact that delves exist or that they reward good gear. It's the difference in proportion. It's the difference in proportional reward. You know? If you've got 2 things that reward the same level gear and one is much, much easier and you get just as much from doing it, you're telling your players to do that. And in fact, when we look at shopping list gear, that's exactly what happened. Blizz weren't giving you a choice to do islands or warfronts or Torghast or visions. They're telling you to do that. And they've admitted as much. They're like, yeah, we wanted to basically force players to do this content because we'd spent a lot of time doing it. And that was supposed to be one of the first biggest lessons they learned with Dragonflight. I've seen interviews of Ian Hazakostas sitting there going, we made a mistake. We made cool content and we really wanted our players to do it so we hadn't wasted our time, so we put rewards in there that were too good to basically force them to do it. That is the lesson, as stated, that they learned. But they didn't learn it well enough, apparently, because we've got the exact same problem right now. So what is the answer? Now, here's the thing, and this might surprise you after the latest few minutes of me talking. I love delves. I think delves is brilliant. Now, eventually, heroic level players will outgrow delves, but it's not going to be until probably 11.05. And that's another thing, actually. That's another thing about the buffet content. Now, there was what were they called? Time things. They were brilliant time things. Rifts, thank you. Time rifts awarded some pretty good gear. Other things in those patches rewarded some pretty good gear. You know what the difference between time rifts and islands is? Islands were there at the beginning of a season. Time rifts didn't come in until a patch into a season. All of these kind of Dragonflight events that actually did award gear, it was always catch-up gear. There was some pretty good gear in time rifts, but if you'd been raiding and mythic plussing and playing the game, you know, you didn't need it on your alts. It was still very useful for you didn't need it on your main, sorry. It was still very useful for alts. It was catch-up gear. It was a patch late, essentially, but still relevant to the season that it was in. Delves are here from the very beginning. There's no better preparation for doing Mythic Plus and Raid than doing Delves. You know? And people say, oh, well, no one's forcing you to do Delves. It's like, well, yeah, actually, if you want to do heroic raids and if you want to do +6, +7 Mythic Plus, you do need to do level 8 Delves, actually, because they're the best preparation you can possibly do. You do actually need to do them, you know? And so it was getting like this last week where someone asked me in the chat, you know, like, what's the difference now between delves and islands? Like, it's just another thing I have to do, except I have to do it on all my characters because I can do it on all my characters, right? And like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's the same mistake. Having said that, I really like delves. Now, there are 2 ways, as I see it, that you can fix it. The number 1 fix, which people won't like, this would be the easiest fix, which would be like tearing off the plaster, and people will hate this. I'm going to say it anyway, but I know you're going to hate it, and I don't even think it's the proper fix anyway, would be to award 619 champion gear. Higher level than they award right now. No, please, God, don't put them in dungeon track. No. Please don't put them in dungeon track. No, that would be the worst thing to do. So, like, you give them max level champion gear, which would be higher than the 616 that they get now. It would be 619 but you couldn't upgrade it anymore. Heroic Raiders and people going for High Mythic Plus would not bother doing it for max level championship gear, even at this stage of the season. You know? Because it's not worth it for them. But Heroic track gear really, really is. So that would be a fix. Max level champion gear, 619. But it can't be upgraded. That would solve the problem. I can imagine the complaints that would get. And you know what? I don't necessarily disagree with those complaints, but I think that's an elegant solution. Obviously, by the way, any of these changes and solutions now would be greeted with, like, uproar from the community because you can't ever make something worse. You know? When I say a fix, what I'm actually saying is how these should have launched. Right? These should have launched with max level champion gear. We'd have no complaints about them. The type of people that Delves were aimed at would be absolutely fucking thrilled with 619 gear. Absolutely thrilled. The only reason it would be a problem is because it launched with heroic track gear. So anyway, that's one fix. The other fix, and you're not going to like this one either, because no one's going to like any fix at this point. The other fix would be to make Delves hard again. This was less of a problem when you didn't assume that you could do level 8 Delves on basically any level 80 character. You know? When Delves were hard, I didn't expect to be able to do level 8 Delves on a fucking 540 newly dinged fucking warrior. But in the last couple of weeks, I ding a new character at level 80. I expect to be able to go in there and do a level 8 delve. And I can. You know? So I think what they probably their biggest mistake in all of this was caving to community pressure and nerfing delves and making them easier. Like, despite all the memes of Bram being useless and Bram being bad, because when you make it difficult, it helps move it off of the shopping list. You know? Because that's another common denominator about all of the shopping list content. It's a done deal. Famously, you basically couldn't lose Warfronts. You know? It was literally a time sink. It wasn't gameplay. It was just time spent. Islands. Couldn't really lose them either, to be honest, could you? Let's be real. Even if you couldn't do them at heroic level, you could just do them at normal level and you just have to do 5 instead of 3. Whatever. It was a done deal. It was brain dead. This combination of having content that you have to do and it also being brain dead is what makes it mandatory. And like I say, Islands, better content just in a vacuum than any of the Dragonflight repeatable stuff. But we all enjoyed the Dragonflight stuff more because it was buffet content and it was not shopping list content. If you put Islands as buffet content and you were doing it purely for transmogs or like a little bit of rep or something, not the main fucking progression currency of the entire expansion that literally everything was based on, that you couldn't even use half the gear that you got if you didn't have enough of that currency, that's what makes it shopping list content. You put it over here and you put like cool transmogs and shit in there. That's why Mage Tower is buffet content, not shopping list content. Then you enjoy Islands a lot more. That's what they did with Torghast in the second half of Shadowlands. So that's why it was much, much better. Like, much better. Yeah, exactly. So if you made delves harder, it kind of would place them sort of in between shopping list content and wish list content. Does that make sense? You know? Because the situation we're in at the moment with delves is that you can do them on literally any level 80. So you kind of have to, because where else as a 540 fresh 80 are you going to get heroic track gear? Literally nowhere. And you have to do them until you have the gear to do the other content that awards you the exact same amount of gear. Because, like, you can't do Mythic Plus that awards you that level gear at 540, but you can do delves. They award the same type of gear on the track. Anyway, delves, yeah. Obvious problems with delves. So obvious that we managed to predict what all the problems would be. At this point, I don't know what the fix is, because any fix you make is going to piss people off. I think, personally, the easiest fix is probably going to be to make them harder again. You know? But I'm seeing people talking about, like, this Zekvir change in terms of, like, oh, big L's for Blizz, like, massive L's, like, you know, games down the fucking pan. I mean, look, this comment that we started the thing with. I hate delves. I only do them for the Great Vault. I will not be renewing my sub. It's like, literally, here's a problem. I hate delves. I only do them for the Great Vault. So they fixed the Zekvir spam, and it's like, well, fuck that. I'm not renewing my sub. So the problem isn't, you know, the problem is that people are feeling forced to do this content to fill out their vault slots. And no matter what you say, you know, like, a large proportion of the player base at the moment does feel pressured to do delves for their Great Vault because, you know, I'm a heroic raider. I do +6 Mythic Plus at the moment, which is, you know, about mid-level Mythic Plus. Objectively mid-level Mythic Plus. And delves are still, like, the best gear I can get in my vault. Forget the fact that it's the easiest slots to fill out in my vault. It's the best gear I can get in my vault right now. And it's the easiest. You know? And so that combination, when it's, like, the easiest and the best, compared to heroic raiding and mid-level Mythic Plus, I feel like that is a problem. You know? And that, and going back to the comment that made me start shouting at you, as a heroic raider, I think it's probably wrong that I feel pressured at this stage in a season to do delves.